Hi, my name's Alison. I'm a proud mum of 12 amazing young men and women and a granny to 3 precious little grandsons. My children, I always say, are some of my favourite teachers in life. I just want to begin. I've been invited to speak just to firstly acknowledge the lands and waterways that I'm on today, the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people in the beautiful city of Naarm, now known as Melbourne, Australia. Just pay my respects to the traditional custodians here, to their elders, and to all of our ancestors wherever we've come from today. Also want to pay my deep respect to all the First Nation elders, brothers and sisters from many communities who shared their stories and wisdom with me over the years. The marginalised traveller communities in Ireland and the Bosnian women who entrusted me with stories of surviving the attempted genocide and siege of Sarajevo 26 years ago. All such beautiful, genuine, big-hearted people that inspired me despite what had happened to them and their families. What I want to share today is simply my reflections. I'm not representing any one culture or community group. My ancestry includes all the 3 I's: Indigenous, immigrant, and invader. As Auntie Judy Atkinson, one of my mentors, says, many of us feel today, with our mixed ancestry, we often have a foot in both sides of historical and recent conflicts, but the different I's need to become we. These are just some of my reflections on my work in the trauma field, and based on my experiences both here and overseas, I want to offer a proposal on ways of working together now in this current global situation. On top of the amazing efforts everyone's doing to address what's happening for us right now in this country and across the globe, with convoys, marches, rallies, educators, doctors, scientists, everyone's speaking up for our families and loved ones, but we must also acknowledge the past. Many today I'm seeing are mentioning and remembering what occurred in the world wars and the Nuremberg trials, in particular, other important points in history. Today, I want to bring you some history from this land the world now calls Australia. The truth remains, this continent has a very dark history, some known and some so horrific it's never spoken about. These lands are full of blood-stained soil. Many don't want to talk about the past. They say we just need to focus on the issues right now. However, as supposedly one of the smartest minds in history, Albert Einstein was purported to say, if we want to fix the problems that we see today, we must first change the thinking that created them. So if this is the case, it is vitally important that we look at the past and see what decisions were made that is now having such an adverse impact on us right now. Renowned First Nation activist Uncle Charles Perkins, who organised the Freedom Ride buses in 1960s, driving around all through New South Wales, that state is called now, also said, we can't live in the past, but the past lives in us. So in addition to paying respect, the overseas wars which our soldiers have bravely fought for freedom from the Boer War right up to today, it is equally important to pay respect to the frontier wars, where First Nations men and women fought for their freedoms and acknowledged the deep wounds of the massacres and the scars from colonisation that still remain to this day. Today, I want to remind us all of 2 important dates. One happened 50 years ago and one happened 14 years ago. The first important date, 50 years ago, 4 brave men in Redfern, Sydney, Michael Anderson, Billy Craigie, Bertie Williams and Tony Curry, drove to Canberra and set up a beach umbrella on the lawns opposite what is now Old Parliament House. On the 6th of February 1972, the Embassy issued a list of demands to the Australian government. This list focused on land right issues in particular. First Nation activist Gary Foley, who was there at the time, said, we are aliens in our own land, so like other aliens, we needed an embassy. Rapidly gathering support, the embassy grew by April to include at least 8 more tents. Sorry, get the facts right. It attracted both Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people from across the country who joined in solidarity. While the embassy enjoyed wide support, it also faced a large contingent of politicians and members of the general public who believed the protest was nothing more than trespassing and a blot on the Canberra landscape. On the 20th of July, you can see it building. Hundreds of protesters clashed with police in a violent brawl after officers tried to move people along and remove the embassy tents. Many protesters were arrested and the tents were torn down. The next Sunday, after the embassy tents had been re-erected, more than 200 protesters again clashed with police and the tents were removed for a second time. Images of the police violence against protesters spread across the country, leading to an even greater support for the embassy and its aims. On the 31st of July 1972, this is a big year, more than 2,000 people were present when the tents were re-erected and then removed by protesters in a peaceful demonstration and statement. By September 1972, a removal ordinance was then introduced, giving police power to remove protesters. Despite being moved a number of times over the following 20 years, until 1992, the original stand came to be where it is again and continues to create pathways, discussions to stand for freedom through sovereignty and self-determination. Sadly, many of the stories I still listen to in communities over the years have shared they're still feeling unseen, segregated, not being listened to, but there consistently remains a strong, determined will to continue to fight for the futures of the children. Since colonisation arrived on the shores of this continent, racist mindsets and attitudes created policies that were enforced over the years and resulted in First Nation people being unable to move freely and travel or spend time with loved ones. They were unable to hold important meetings and ceremonies like attending and celebrating births, weddings or funerals. They lost important jobs in their communities: doctors, nurses, lawyers, educators of the children, and ways of feeding your family, traditional ways. They also began losing home and land and were placed into camps away from everything that was familiar without understanding even the language being spoken. Regardless of where we've come from and what stories of battles our ancestors may have gone through, I would like us now to have a minute's silence in respect of the resilience, commitment, and spirit of these warriors. Thank you. So throughout history, change always comes from a few people on the ground coming together. It does not come by sitting and waiting for an authority figure to change anything. This is why I was moved to keep focused on ways of working together as a people to completely dissolve this tyrannical, hierarchical system across the globe. We need to step out of the boxes we've been put in or even put ourselves in and come together in a circle of unity. So the second important date, 13th of February 2008, is 14 years since Kevin Rudd made his apology speech. It was in particular to acknowledge and say sorry for the stolen generation policy, which was where they were first forcibly removing children, wanted to acknowledge this painting behind me too, from a friend, a beautiful friend who's 3 generations this has happened in his family, stolen generation. So today we've reworded Rudd's apology to now offer a people's apology, to acknowledge what we envision may help us heal and truly feel we're standing together, fighting for people across the many diverse countries, across the globe. Colonisation has gone across the globe. It's affecting all First Nation people and the people now coming together. So I just wanted to read it. If you would like to read it along with me, I'll pause in between each sentence to say the words. Today, we honour the first peoples of this continent we now call Australia. The oldest continuing cultures in human history. We reflect on their past mistreatment. We reflect in particular on the mistreatment of those who were stolen generations. This blemished chapter in this nation's history. The time has come for us, the people living on these lands and on this planet, to turn a new page in history by taking steps in righting the wrongs and moving forward together now with confidence for the future. We apologise for the laws and policies of successive parliaments, governments, and the colonial thinking and mindsets that have inflicted profound grief, suffering, and loss on these, our fellow Australians. We apologise especially for the removal of First Nation children. From their families, their community, and their country. For the pain, suffering, and hurt of these stolen generations, their descendants, and for their families, we say sorry. To the mothers and the fathers, the brothers and the sisters, for the breaking up of families and communities, we say sorry. And for the indignity and degradation thus inflicted on a proud people and a proud culture, we say sorry. For the future, we take heart, resolving that this new page in the history of the world can now be written. We today take this first step by acknowledging the past horror and acknowledging the current unlawful, restrictive, harmful policies that are now affecting all of us and lay claim to a future that embraces all of us. A future where we, the people standing on this land, resolve the injustices of the past must never, never happen again. A future where we harness the determination of all to close the gaps between us, where we truly stand together to fight for our children and loved ones' freedoms. A future where we embrace the possibility of new solutions to enduring problems, where old approaches have failed. A future based on mutual respect, mutual resolve, and mutual responsibility. A future where all, whatever their origins, are truly equal partners with equal opportunities and with an equal stake in shaping the next chapter in the history of this great country and the world. Thank you for listening.